Okay guys, Texas is starting to thaw out a little bit. This morning I am in Cleburne at the Prairieland Groundwater Conservation District. They're doing an Area 8 meeting. This is comprised of several different groundwater conservation districts. Texas Water Development Board, Central Texas Groundwater Conservation District, Clearwater Underground Conservation District, Middle Trinity, North Texas, Northern Trinity, Post Oak Savannah, Prairie Lands, Red River, Saratoga Underground Water Conservation District, Southern Trinity, and Upper Trinity. This is at 10 o'clock this morning. It's a long agenda. I have a post with the event linking to the agenda on the page so you can go see it. And we're going to go in and get this meeting started. Well, they're going to get it started. I'm just going to watch. Let's get the map. I would love a paper copy. This is more for the live stream people. But I would still like a paper copy because this is pretty cool.
Well, our printer is down at the moment, but here, you can take this if you want.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Ta-da. Here we go. Request form, sign in, and brochures.
Okay, everybody, we got 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've asked Mr. David Gaddis to lead us in invocation this morning.
Would you join me in prayer? Thank you, Lord, for this day, for the sun that rises, for the moisture you have given us, for your presence in this world, for your presence in this room. Help us to respect each other, even though our opinions and perspectives may be different. Help us to listen and understand each other as we attempt to manage a tremendous water resource that you have blessed us with. Guide us in all of our activities and work. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, David. My name is Mitchell Sodek. I'm the chairman for GMA 8, and call this meeting to order. We'll establish a quorum by doing a simple roll call. We'll start here on Scooter. Just state your name and your district.
Scooter Ramford, Southern Trinity.
Whitney Ingram, Clearwater.
Patrick Wagner, Middle Trinity.
Corey Jones, Northern Trinity, GCD.
Doug Shaw, Upper Trinity.
Mitchell Sodek, Central Texas.
David Gaddis, Red River.
Paul Siegel, North Texas, GCD.
Kathy Turner Jones, Prairie Lands, Groundwater District. Nobody wanted to sit by me.
You can scoot
And I
over
brought the
here.
donuts.
And we thank you
I
for that.
furnished them.
So we do have a quorum present today in the room, and then we also have, looks like Post Oak Savannah joining us virtually, Gary Westbrook and Michael Bredman.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Good to see you, Gary. And then I guess that leaves Saratoga as the only district absent. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this GMA 8 meeting on January 29th, 2026. We're going to go ahead and move to item 4, which is public comment. Are there any public comments today?
We have a sign-in sheet back there.
Did anybody sign in for public comment? And did everybody sign in prior to coming into the room? Okay, well, hearing no public comment, we'll move to item number 5, which is consider and act upon the approval of the minutes from the November 14th, 2025 GMA 8 meeting. We have a motion from Scooter and a second by David. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item 6, discussion and possible action on the overview and timeline for DFC joint planning. Call Dr. Neil Dietz up with Intera to give us his presentation.
Appreciate the time, folks. You're going to have to bear with me for a little while here. When we made the agenda, it just kept growing, and I'm not going to be up here for all the agenda items, but I'm up here for a few. So I do appreciate the folks who came down from the north. I know you were ice skating a little bit on your way, so it's nice to see you all here. Awesome. All right, so the agenda items, I'm going to go through 6 through 10. And we'll talk about them as we go along. 11, 12, 13, and then I think Mike's going to talk, Mike Easter, and then 15, 16, and then I'll end on 20. I'm not going to do all the talking on 20, but there's a couple things we definitely need to cover in the next meeting. So I want us to, we're going to be wanting to leave by then, man. It's going to be a couple hours in, but we need to make sure we get some things on the agenda for the next meeting because they're critical for adopting DFCs. All right, and this is agenda item, this is where we were, right, Mitchell, 6?
That's correct.
Okay. So discussion and possible action on overview and timeline for DFC joint planning. So here we are in January, and basically we are, if we see the plan, we're one meeting away from where we're going to be adopting DFCs in May. So that's where we are right now. I think we're on track, I think we're doing fine. If we can cover all of our agenda items today, then we're going to have a slimmer agenda in the following meeting. We'll have a couple of things to do, and then adopting DFCs and approving the explanatory report. So those are key items that will happen in the next meeting. But I do feel like we're on track. Any questions on the schedule? Okay.
That it for agenda item 6? Okay.
That's the end.
Any other questions on that agenda item? Moving to agenda item 7, discussion and possible action on the Northern Trinity and Woodbine aquifer groundwater availability model update and review timeline.
Right, so Christmas was on the line, so we finally got that thing turned in. December 16th of last year, so the water board has had it about a month. I know the holidays, of course, slowed down their review process, so I'm sure they're just digging in. The approval is going to be pending the water board approval, but it is with Darren and his group as of December 16th, 2025. If you remember, there were no public comments, so we don't expect any changes from the water board, but we are waiting their approval. Questions?
Any questions? Okay. Move on to agenda item 8.
All right, 8, so discussion and possible action on model run 4.6 for DFC planning. So that's the most recent model run that was completed. I appreciate all the work that was done at the committee level to get this run going. If you guys recall, and in fact, I probably have an intro slide here of what these runs were. So we had a 4.1, which was our best estimate of current and future pumping. We had a 4.2, which was a baseline run. In other words, we took the pumping that was our best estimate of 2024 and just ran it all the way through. That would be what we consider probably the minimum amount of pumping might occur in the future. 4.3 was very similar to 4.1, just made a few tweaks. 4.5 was the same as 4.3, but we held pumping steady in 2040. So in other words, it envisioned the time in the future, a few decades away, where pumping flattens out and does not increase. And then 4.6 is generally a mix of 4.3 and 4.5. So some districts chose to keep the pumping from 4.3. Some districts chose to keep the pumping from 4.5, and then some made some minor adjustments. But in general, it was a blend of 4.3 and 4.5. This table summarizes what the feedback was we got from the districts. So you can see that in general, people either chose 4.3 or 4.5 or made some small modifications to it. And again, a lot of this was discussed at the committee level, but I'm happy to answer any questions we have been leading up to showing the results from 4.6.
I have just a real quick question. There's notes in there say some aquifers combined. So, and we talked about this briefly a while back. In Hood County, there's this weird sliver, like in the bottom of the corner of the county, where there's Travis Peak and Hinsdale and Austin. Is there any way we can do away with that? And like, I want to treat those lower 3 units just as the Twin Mountains, like we do the rest of the county, because literally it's, how do we monitor that? We don't have a Hinsdale well down there, we don't have a Hostin well down there, they're all Twin Mountains. And then the difference between calling it Twin Mountains and Travis Peak. It's just become a struggle with the Water Development Board, like having them require us to put either those values in our management plan or footnotes, and like, how do we manage that? We don't have any monitor wells in those discrete formations. They're Twin Mountains wells, right?
Yeah.
So is there any way we can combine those? Can we have that discussion for the final DFC?
100%. So
that's all I want.
I'm going to tentatively say yes, because I think there should be no reason, unless it's sliced and diced in a bunch of different ways. I want to make sure I don't say yes without not having to buy something. But Patrick asked for something similar. We did something similar, I think, for Paul. Did some combinations, I think.
Yeah,
for
it's kind of similar to what Doug has. We have Red River on the south, there's a sliver, right, where it kind of separates.
Yeah. It's not a big effort as long as it's similar to what's been done.
I'm 90% sure it is. And if we can get that done, that would be great.
Just send me an email. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Okay, I don't, what we have here is a bunch of, I want to go through auto flow reduction. I'm sorry, I forgot about this. So if y'all remember, we had turned the flag on for auto flow reduce, we turned it back off. What does that do? Well, what it does is if you have more pumping than the aquifer can sustain at a location, as the water level's drawn down towards the bottom of the aquifer, the code, the model itself starts reducing pumping to make it physical, because otherwise you can draw the water level below the bottom of the well, and the model just keeps pumping even though that's not a physical condition. And so we had turned it off, then we turned it back on, and when you turn it on, you get a physical result, which is what we want, but you also get less pumping than what you put in, because it's reducing pumping as you go. So what we did to adjust for this is we left it on because we want a physical condition, but we added future wells in those locations in order to be able to accommodate that increased pumping. For instance, in Corey's in Tarrant, there's a lot of cut pumping because there was some real focused Austin pumping in the eastern part of the county. Basically, we programmatically added future wells to spread that pumping out a little bit so that the aquifer could accept it. So that was our strategy. In general, it mitigated the effect where we have one county aquifer at a 13% reduction in 2080. And again, it doesn't generally happen until the very end of the run, but we got everybody else below 10% in terms of reduction. So I would encourage you to take a look at the percentage changes. They're in the spreadsheets I sent out as part of the technical committee. And I'm not gonna run through them all in detail today, but if you're like, hey, you know, we can't stand that 5% reduction in 2080, let me know and we'll work on it. But otherwise, I think we're pretty close to where we need to be with 4.6.
So the 2% for the antlers in Grayson County, for that small 2%, you're gonna add a well to,
If 2% matters to you, when I got below 10%, I stopped
Oh, okay.
trying, yeah.
okay, but that means we'll have a little bit lower.
Slightly lower in 2080.
Yeah.
It does not affect anybody in the early decades like 2030, 2040. So what you're managing to in the next, you know, decade, it does not affect.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on that? I know it's kind of subtle, but it ended up being something we had to wrestle with. Okay, we're going on with results. So because these results are very similar to whatever you chose, so if you chose 4.3 or 4.5 and you've had the results for a few days, you may not have had a chance to look at them, that's totally fine. But I don't want to go through all of these results one by one. So what I would ask is, if anybody has any particular questions about their district or the numbers from their district, maybe we just give a little time, everybody can kind of glance through the slides. But in general, my preference is to not go through all this. These are in this public meeting for the public record, but if there's any discussion you guys want to have, I'm happy to have it.
I got it. On subject Trinity,
Yes, sir.
in the year 2050, 2060, 2070, and 2080, our board met yesterday with these numbers, and we're trying to see, can't make that all those 4 years of 20,360.
And we're talking about Travis Peak,
Travis Peak District.
20,360. Yeah, what it looks like is happening there is there is some reduction that's happening from autoflow reduce. It's less than 10%, but you would like those numbers to be exactly 20,360.
Yes.
Okay, we'll give it a whirl. Let me just make a note really quick. This is agenda item. And that's 20,360.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's for the decades starting in 2040.
2050, 2060, and 28, or 70 and 80.
Yeah. It looks like 2040 is already 20,360, so yeah, it needs to be, okay.
I apologize for the yellow smearing. I didn't realize when I was doing that it was gonna show up on everybody's copy.
I caught that and I reverted to a different copy when I gave it to her. It's not your fault. I shouldn't send a shared version if it's editable. That's no problem.
I finally went back and erased it, but it was too late, I guess.
I mean, at least everybody in comments like, man, these consultants are killing me. What's going on here?
Oh, it got edited?
Yeah, the one you printed, all the highlights.
Just had some highlights on it. Yeah. All good.
Neil, just a clarification on page 14. The header on the slide says 4.6 and 4-6 mag. If you look at the spreadsheet, it still says run 4.
No, I missed that one, yeah. This is 4.6.
Okay.
I assure you, I just did not update that in the spreadsheet. I'll make that correction. Correct. Thanks, James. So we have mags, we do show the average drawdown, and I noted when I sent it out to the technical committee that I didn't see anything surprising in the drawdowns. They were very similar to whatever either 4.3 or 4.5 that you had chosen before. There was one where run 4.2 was chosen, which was the lower run, if you guys recall. And Patrick, was that in your district?
Yeah.
And turns out that even though you backed off the pumping, the drawdown was kind of similar to 4.3 because of the adjacent counties.
Should have been increased pumping.
4.2, that's because your 4.2 was higher, that's right.
Because when you run any other run, it shows that there's a gain of water in Comanche County. And so we went to, okay, no, the pumping is higher because it reflects there's a higher pumping there. And that kind of solved the drawdown problem. Because otherwise, I think, I guess I should talk to this, otherwise I think you have to then start looking at recharge factors.
Understood.
And so we were trying to use Water Development Board, USDA data to help support pumping, more so than going down the road messing with the recharge.
Okay. Well, if you see something unusual, just let me know. Yeah. Any questions on the drawdowns? We have some maps of drawdowns too. The maps look very similar. I was doing side by sides when I put them together. In fact, we have 4.3 versus 4.6. I know some of y'all chose 4.5 or other ones. I'm using 4.3 as a baseline here to compare 4.6 because they are quite similar. Right now I'm on slide 24. So in Hensel and Austin, there's still quite a lot of drawdown in the southern portion. We have pumping in Williamson, Bell counties, and Travis County. You also have a boundary there to the east that tends to make that drawdown higher than it otherwise would be. You can see the drawdown doesn't propagate up dip as much as it does down dip because of that reflection boundary. So on slide 26, we're showing the Austin here. Stop right there and see if there's any questions. Again, if you find things as you're going through these, I know it's a ton of numbers, just follow up with me and we'll discuss. Starting with slide 27, we show some drawdowns with a different color scale because it's in the outcrop and there's less drawdown in the outcrop. So that's just to accentuate those counties that are primarily outcrop, Upper Trinity, Tarrant County, down through Burnett County. And then finally, we're showing available drawdown. If you remember, that's the measurement from the water level to the bottom of the aquifer. So bigger is better in terms of available drawdown in 2080. As you move down dip, even though there's been significant drawdown predicted in the southern portion, you can see there's still a lot of available drawdown there in most cases. Western Williamson may be the exception there, where you're starting to see a little bit of a cone there. You remember we discussed different metrics for stating DFCs. In the previous round, we were strictly average drawdown. So we have these other metrics. Could it be available drawdown or percentage drawdown remaining or percentage drawdown remaining at wells? So all of those metrics were made available in those spreadsheets for you to consider. And we do have an agenda item where we're gonna talk about the types of, how we're gonna state the DFCs. Hensel, Austin, and then our percentage remaining, we have tables of that starting on slide 31. Again, we're highlighting ones that are less than 50% available remaining. The available remaining, just to remind you, was measured from starting in 2020. So 2020 is the baseline. If we say it's 50%, that means you have 50% of what was available in 2020. So for Middle Trinity, where we had made some combinations, we have not yet made those combinations in this table here for the available drawdown. They are combined in the average drawdown. So I don't know how you intend to state your DFCs, but if you go to this one, we'll have to make that aggregation.
I mean, if we wanted to look at that little more detail, would more detail be available on how many wells are in the average and how big a variation there is? Is that all available if we wanted to?
Yeah, I can send that to you. So this right now is just the average for every model cell in the region that's being described here. So the next set though, and I believe I put them here, are available drawdowns by well. Let's just take a quick look and see. Pretty sure, yep. So starting on slide 37, available drawdown by wells. So what we did is take the data set that was in the model, that are all the pumping wells, with the exception of private wells, which I know affects Doug and others, and Mitchell as well. Most of the wells are private in Vernon County as well. But we only use the non-private wells because those are what's in the pumping data set in the model. The private wells are represented by sort of a disaggregated pumping that's spread across the shallow portion of the model, and that's why we didn't use them. So these are the non-private well counts that were used for the averages. And we have the available drawdown at each of those wells in a very large spreadsheet if you want to examine that. We can send it to you. If you start telling me one or two wells is wrong, I'm going to listen, but I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to warn you.
That's fine. I just, if you're going to look at that in more detail, obviously the spread would make a difference.
Oh, sure.
We don't have a slide for available drawdown for non-districts.
We do, I think I only put Williamson County in there. I don't think I did the rest of it. Did I even do Williamson County? Did I skip it? My bad.
I was gonna.
Yep, I skipped it, my bad.
Yeah, I was gonna ask also the available drawdown by wells. I'd really like to get some information out into the public for the Williamson County folks so that they can look at, is that available? All you have to do is pull it and put it in the spreadsheet, or?
Yeah, I just simply did not cut and paste it into this slide. That's my bad. I dropped it. Yep, I've got the spreadsheet. It's in the spreadsheets that were sent to the technical committee, which does not include you, Gary, but I can forward them to you.
Yeah, that's a running joke between Neil and I. My concern continues to be that we simply allow pumping in Williamson County to continue to increase. Even though there's no regulation there to stop it, I think we should educate these folks about the impending concerns. A 500 gallon a minute well today is not going to be 500 gallons a minute as a well in the not too distant future because of increased production. And I still think that a lower pumping rate as we go through planning would be one way to reduce the mag and get these guys to come to the table. And I think that when we just look at a place that doesn't have a groundwater district, whether it's Williamson or any of the other counties, if they just continue to produce and it affects all the rest of us, then what good does it do for us to manage if they're not going to?
I was just going to flip back and look at Williamson County, so the average available drawdown. Sorry, I flipped back too far. They're pretty similar, the drawdown by wells in general, unless the wells are concentrated in the updip areas, which is not true for Wilco. So, yeah, I should have just done the non-district counties here. So I can follow up with those. It's a good point, Gary.
I'm assuming that the available drawdown is going to be similar to Clearwater, below 50% in most layers.
Yeah, we could let's look at the plot. And I think probably the Austin's the one that's most relevant, at least long term. I mean, Mike and Whitney, you can just talk over me if I'm saying stupid stuff. So, but the production or the new development I'm seeing in Williamson County and I'm seeing in the Austin primarily. Right. So here's the Austin, and so you can see Bell and Williamson. Let's say, southern Williamson has a little more available drawdown in it, because I don't know, a lot of the pumping's more concentrated in the north, I would say. Is that true, Mike, or is that just, yeah?
That's accurate, yeah, that's where development's occur.
Okay. So down in, like, Round Rock doesn't have Trinity wells, Georgetown doesn't have Trinity wells, so where the cities are down there, there's not a lot of pumping, but in the northern areas where they're not as urban, there's development happening. More discussion on that, Gary?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Neil, Williamson County has performed some evaluations over the last couple of years, I believe. I guess none of that is available yet?
No, it's not publicly available. I asked the consultant, it was LRE that did the study, they're not able to release it. I've gone through Round Rock and Georgetown, and they haven't been able to get their hands on it yet either. So I don't have like an end where I can necessarily get a draft copy, so it's not available to me.
Okay, you guys have heard my concerns at the last meeting, and I appreciate your consideration. I just think that, I think we're doing ourselves as well as the folks in Williamson County a disservice if we don't do something to change the current pattern that we see, which is that they don't have to come to the table, and you're gonna continue to see increased production. And sooner than later, it's gonna cause issues for those folks that thinks that they're gonna have water to continue to be available to them out of their current wells, because over time, they will reduce in capacity, and it'll affect the rest of us as they do, so.
I would be remiss if I didn't agree with everything Gary spoke to today. I think I've heard me at the last couple of meetings kind of speak to the same. I just think this is part of our role. We need to look at managing the resource and not front loading it, just be safe for those counties that are not at the table.
I know it's easier to do it this way, guys, and I know it adds a burden to us if we do some of these things, but that really is, to me, that's a great concern.
Yeah, I guess I share the same concerns, but I'm not sure what you're asking you would prefer different.
Probably just change the pumping numbers, moving forward. I mean, we've assumed continued increase, and I think that if the rest of us are looking at a point where these things start to level off and production is no longer able to increase, then I think we should do it for those counties that don't have a groundwater district as well. Everyone here will be required to manage the DFCs, and we now have a decadal responsibility as well, and it's gonna be really difficult if there's no requirements on these other counties when there are requirements on our districts. And sooner or later, it affects the water availability for everyone.
When do you estimate that this reduction in pumping capacity will occur? Is it like 2 years from now, 10 years from now, or?
Just depends on how fast that they continue to ramp up. And it depends on what size well and which one of the formations. I don't have a simple answer for you. I just understand enough about the Trinity to understand that over time, as the water levels decline in these wells due to a depressurizing effect, that their production capacity will also go down.
Well, I was just thinking that it's not possible that their interest level might change some as they see their wells capacity decrease. Maybe.
I think the first response, you are correct, I believe. That's natural, but I think their first response will be just simply to drill another well, instead of looking for alternatives. that would be more conservation minded. To me, if we were to hold the production at a lower level, it would yield a mag that might cause an issue for some of these entities that are gonna be looking for funding from the Texas Water Development Board. And if the mag wasn't available, it might get them to the table sooner. Does that make sense?
Yes. It makes total sense, Gary.
Yeah.
Can I,
Gary, for Southern Trinity, we support what you're saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, we support that completely.
can I ask Mike to comment from Clearwater on this?
So, yeah, kind of as a
Can you
reminder.
come to the mic?
Sorry. Just kind of as a reminder for what Clearwater's dealing with and why, you know, we did add that pumping in for Williamson County. And based on real world things that we're seeing and real world projections, growth that we've been seeing out there, while lowering the mag may have the effect you're talking about, and I certainly understand that why you're wanting to maybe have their mag lower from a funding perspective of what they can get. They don't have to come do it. They don't have to ever develop a GCD. They don't. Those are things they don't absolutely have to do. But the pumping there does affect Clearwater, and it does affect Clearwater's ability to manage the aquifers in the area. So
Sure.
it does have that real world effect on Clearwater's planning, and so that's why we're trying to be put in there what we thought might really happen. 60 years down the road. So.
Well, and to clarify, it affects everybody in the GMA, it doesn't just affect Clearwater.
Right, it doesn't just affect Clearwater, we're right there, or Clearwater's right there.
Understood.
Did you have anything else? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
cut
no.
you off.
In case there's a question, but I didn't say it.
Mitchell, would it be appropriate if I asked Brian Clay to speak on behalf of the district for a moment?
On this topic?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
It was not planned, but Gary got me all worked up. Thank you, Gary.
No problem, Brian. Glad I could help.
You always do. Yeah, I just want to, I certainly understand, especially from the Clearwater perspective, why you would want to include in this model run that sets the DFCs what you think the actual anticipated pumping from Williamson County is going to be. Because if you underestimate that, then somebody might look at Clearwater and say, hey, you're not achieving your DFCs, right? But I don't know that this appeasing the lack of management in Williamson County complies with the statute. The definition of a DFC is a desired condition. I don't think anybody desires what we're projecting to happen in Williamson County to happen. I think a better explanation when Clearwater, if you were to go and say, you know, treating Williamson County fairly, what's the average pumping profile for a similarly situated area over the subcrop? And let's give them that. Let's treat them like we're all trying to tighten our belts a little bit and be treated and see what the drawdown conditions are there. And then when they bust it, and you're busting your DFCs, and frankly you won't be the only ones, they'll probably be busting them in McLennan County. If somebody were to ask the TCQ, which is the worst thing that can happen to you, or drag you before the legislature and say, hey, why aren't you achieving your DFCs? The answer is, we can't. We're limiting our pumping to the pumping that was in the mag file for the cells in our county. But the giant sucking from Williamson County prevents us from being able to do that. Because if you give them all this water in the DFC, you allow them to go get funding from the state to fulfill that. It's going to go in the state, regional and state water plans so that they can build projects that are consistent with the mag you give them. It just seems more reasonable. I highly doubt anybody here desires a condition in Williamson County that is a 1,300, 1,600 foot drawdown, whatever it is, with regional impacts going all the way almost to the Metroplex. It's just, you know, it's not the way the system was set up, and you're just playing into their hands. Now when they're pumping it's drawing down the aquifer 1,300 feet, they say, hey, we're still in compliance. If we had a groundwater district, we'd be in compliance with the DFCs, Mr. Legislator, because, you know, we're right on track doing what GMAA established for us. So I just think it's, you can explain away why Williamson County is causing you to bust DFCs, but you can't explain away that you set is this desired condition that be what you desired for Williamson County, who doesn't have a voice at this table. Just my 2 cents. Happy to answer any questions.
Wait, Brian, does you agree with me?
Absolutely. Reasonable lines, agree.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you. Anyway, that's my concern, guys. I appreciate you hearing me out, and that's, Brian did a better job of expressing, I think, in detail where I see this going, and I realize that it might require an additional model run with the reduction in production in Williamson County to achieve what I'm speaking to, but I think that our district would be willing to fund a large portion of that model run if the rest of the GMA were willing to consider it.
So I understand your concerns, Gary, and I share the same, and thank you, Brian, for those comments. But how do we land at a different number? Like what
Yeah, Clearwater spent a lot of time trying to get these numbers right. You know, our goal is, we hear what you're saying, but our goal is really to have the most accurate information we can put into the model to accurately show what's going on.
Right, I just want to, I'm sorry guys, I just want to echo kind of what Brian's saying. Like, I get that point, but like, that really isn't the point of joint planning, right? Going all the way back to 05 and 07, like, it's not to make sure everything everybody wants to do is in there. It's to identify a future desired condition, all right? And as Brian says, I don't know that anybody desires 1,300 feet of drawdown or whatever. But I mean, I get it. I'm real quiet on this because it doesn't affect us. I just think it seems like we are just trying to get projects in the state water plan. And that's, I don't know if that's the intent of this process. And I'm sorry if I upset anybody by that. That's just what it seems like.
And I very deeply respect what Clearwater's trying to look at, because they're looking at what they consider to be best available science. And if there's no regulation over there, then I certainly understand and I applaud the extent to which you work to gather that information. Now, I do want to add one more caveat. My expression of concern includes the consideration that new projects over there would depend on state funding. And that's not always the case. Private funding in Williamson County could bypass the MAG and just continue to produce. So that argument actually falls on the side of what Clearwater has already done. Because if they're not restricted by the MAG in any way because they don't put the water development board for funding, then they would go ahead and put the project in anyway. But I think sooner or later, there's not one simple item that will cause change. It has to be the combination of several things, which I think we've addressed today, that would bring about that change. Another one would be going into the state water plan. You know, when you've got private entities that are funding these projects, they also look at predicted availability and state water plan. And when you show a deficit, some of those private entities that are funding these projects get a little nervous. We've seen that happen with projects in our district in the Freezer Wilcox. So I do believe that at the end of the day, I do believe that an effort that I'm describing will be working.
Can I have our engineer address something?
Sure.
It If Wally's going up there, I do apologize for not being there today. I got cheated out of 2 days with my grandkids, so I'm not really happy about that, but, I still can't walk straight, so thank you to Kathy for providing the opportunity for me to participate, and thank you to you guys for putting up with me.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thanks. I'll try to be very quick. I know, the comments that Brian made were very similar to what was made by our president of our board at our meeting, a month ago. The concern, and being a sister district, Clearwater, we have the same concerns Clearwater does too, so it's a balancing. I think one of the strongest arguments, and again, totally consistent with what Brian said, is that we're gonna get to relook at this issue in Williamson County to see if they do start pumping a lot of water. So these numbers, we're projecting them out all the way to 2080, are gonna get revised numerous times before Williamson gets to anywhere close to any of these pumping numbers we're discussing today. So I think there's time for correction of this if there is a problem. We're very concerned that this sets a goal for them, as Brian said, that hey, and we're all okay with that goal, and we're not. I think you saw some direct impact in terms of the auto reduction function and mod flow hitting our district. So our mag went down. Most of you guys' mag stayed the same or went up. It didn't go down by much, but it did curtail it. And that is a direct result of the high numbers in Williamson County. So it is already having these high production numbers in Williamson County that we're projecting out to 2080 already impacting McLennan County and our ability to manage our water. And that we're permitting to our mag, and that we had a very rigorous conservation project to conserve water for future use. Everything that I think everybody here supports. So I think there's an ability, you're asking to how much to reduce that by, there's an ability to pick smaller numbers and maybe hold those numbers constant. And we're gonna revisit this issue because if Williamson starts to pump 30,000 acre feet, it's not gonna happen overnight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Wait, when is the pumping in Williamson County coming online?
In the model?
Yeah.
Or in real life?
I don't have the mag numbers.
It's
so-
right up there.
Is it right up there? Okay.
So look at the bottom line, very bottom line there.
2030 is when it really.
So
began.
in 5 years, all pumping expected to be here. There's no
In this
mag-
particular model, yeah.
I don't think that's a huge amount of infrastructure to go in 5 years for just the pipelines and everything else.
I mean, you've already got the well field development already occurring right now. I mean, they're hiding well before.
I can't hear you, Patrick, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that there's already, you're talking about infrastructure. The wells are already in the ground and the reports are already being hit.
All of them?
Not all, but there's some over, so just trying to keep in mind, pumping will be here in 2030. I'm not saying whether.
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, some
Plus
degree.
additional pumping.
Yes.
And the majority of this pumping, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, was from maybe 4 big projects.
That's correct, yes.
So we're not really talking about thousands of private wells. These are major public water supply wells that you.
I thought it was a lot of data centers.
Basically supply, some type of supply wells, yeah. Could be data center, could be public.
I misspoke. Maybe not public water supply.
Okay.
Large wells.
Yes. Which will probably be funded private sector, and therefore, if we put all this into the state water plan, it allows for additional development from the public sector. I think it's kind of double dipping. Potential.
Well, I hear everybody's concerns, and I think I share them, but I will say I don't think it was worthless to do these type of runs, because I think this gives us really valuable information.
Oh, I agree, but I wanna be sure everybody knows that.
And I wanna agree with Mitchell as well. I mean, I wanted to see more runs with smaller numbers, because I think that's the point of the process, right? You throw a bunch of options out there and see what could happen. And I think the runs are very, very useful. Well, I mean, look, I'm just gonna go back into what I said a few meetings ago. Where our district is located, I mean, you can look at what's happened there historically, and you can just expect that to happen down dip, right? Like, water levels have already dropped below the top of the aquifer. We've already seen, huge, in our relative to our district, huge PWS systems converting to surface water because production's fallen off. The same thing's gonna happen in Williamson County. You know, they're gonna start pumping, I have no doubt they're gonna start pumping a ton of water. But by the time they get to 2080, they're not gonna be able to make that water anymore, realistically, right? If they start pumping this much. I mean, water levels are gonna start falling, the rates from each well is gonna fall to, 50% or less. They're gonna drilling more wells, and eventually they're gonna abandon it and find another source. That's just what happens, when you start over pumping an aquifer like the Trinity.
And in the meantime, they will reduce production capacity for most of the wells in the general area within several counties, and everybody will be sharing the same challenges.
Any further discussion on this model run 4.6? So should we move to item 9? Discussion and possible action on additional model runs for DFC planning.
I don't like what Gary laid out.
If you pay for them, is that what you're saying?
Well, I know he volunteered, and my district would certainly be supportive of
Desired
that.
future conditions.
We have to keep the timeline definitely at the forefront because we are running to the end of the line here.
Yes, agreed.
And we're contracted for a single run left.
Yep. Which, yeah. I haven't checked the budget.
Are there any other counties that any of you guys are as concerned about as we've talked about now with Williamson? I mean, you got Dallas County, you got, what, is there 7 or 8 production capacity counties?
You brought up Dallas County, and I think that's something that we've never really addressed. Like, I know the pumping we have in Dallas County is way too low, way too low. I'm looking at Corey, and I think he agrees with me. It's his neighbor. One of my board members does a lot of work over there, and I was talking to him, and I mean, he sells and installs meters. There's a 2, 3, 4 times more pumping in Dallas County than what's in the model. I just want to make everybody aware of that.
I think it's been previously a misconception, it's mostly surface water.
Right, there's a lot of commercial groundwater production in Dallas County, and there's a lot of irrigation for big wells.
Right. I know they're talking about a lot of data centers going in Navarro County. I know it's primarily surface water. Has anyone heard about what, as far as groundwater development on that? I haven't. I just know I keep seeing in the news about the data centers.
Well, I think we should be consistent. So these same concerns that everybody brought up on Williamson County, these other non-district areas need to have the same considerations. To answer your question, Gary, I think Travis County also gets lumped in kind of with Williamson to a lesser degree on their numbers, but they're another county.
I agree. Thank you.
So Neil, do you have a thought on ability to run that, a timeline, to fit in with our schedule, if that is a consideration?
Yeah, we're definitely getting towards the end. My hope was that we would come out of this meeting with our final run, but that appears to not be the case, if that's what y'all want to do, another run.
It seems to me like, with this 4.6 and moving to a final run, we have pretty well worked through the process of trying to project what we think is going to happen in the future. We just need to get on with it and finish it and let the Texas Water Development Board wrestle with it, and we'll have another go at it 5 years later, and 5 years later, and 5 years later. And in the meantime, as we wrestle with whether or not we're going to have the rule of law, and we have the growth in Texas that we have, and the projected growth that we're going to have, and a greater assertion by the private sector to do what they want to do regardless. You know, we have to work through all these things, and we can only do so much in each cycle. I think we as individual water districts need more detail. We need to fund it and do it. But as a GMA8, we've kind of covered what we need to cover, in my opinion.
Well, based on my conversations with the board, you know, with the current numbers for Williamson County, I may be asked to vote no on the DFCs if those numbers stay. And there may be other districts, so I think, and I'm not speaking for any other district, but if that's the case, I feel like it'd be safer to do a run now to just look at that and have that opportunity versus having to potentially restart and look at it all again. I just don't see that it hurts. If someone's willing to pay for the runs and it can be done in a timely manner, that we give it a look.
We're willing to do the runs. I mean, it just, somebody has to come up with the numbers we put in the model, and they've got to do it quick. It can't happen from 5 committee meetings and people going back and forth. So if we can figure out a process for getting it done fast, and Tarrant can get the runs done fast. Yes.
You know, from our standpoint, we're not interested in another run, but from what I'm hearing, something that sounds reasonable is maybe a slower ramp up in Williamson County. Is that a point where we can maybe compromise on the pumping there in Williamson County? Is that a place to start?
That's not a bad place to start, because it jumps from 5,000 to 30,000, and in the Travis Peak, and from 3,400 to 27,000 in Austin. Those are tremendous increases over the next 5 years, and I think that if we were to have a slower ramp up, would give us time during the next planning cycle to maybe accomplish some more studies. I think that's something I could certainly support. I appreciate you bringing that up and offering that.
I'm not contradicting you, Gary. I don't think that prediction is over the next 5 years. I would say that what's happening right now in 2025 it's certainly not 3,000 acre feet per year. I mean, it's probably 10 or 12 or 15 or something like that right now. So that ramp up is, it's maybe double. I don't know, Mike, what do you think?
I echo what you're saying there.
I mean, we just see a lot of the phones ringing in Terra for people drilling wells in northern Williamson County.
James, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to circle back to your Doug's comment and your follow-up and say, what is y'all's recommendation to be consistent if you're going to do something like this for Williamson County? Are you suggesting we do the same thing in Dallas and other places too, where we, send a signal basically that says, hey, this water's not available, etc.?
We already do that in Dallas, right? Because they're already pumping way more than what the MAC is. I would guarantee that there's 3-4 times more pumping in Dallas County than the current MAC. And that data is just not available because there is no district there. And I mean, we just know because we know, right? We know people that work over there and are like, no, I have a board member that's got a couple clients that pump more than the MAC in Dallas County. You know what I'm saying?
So you're already addressing part of the end result that we would hope to accomplish by this exercise that we've discussed. And that is that you already have a MAG that's, even though they're pumping more, if the MAG were to come into play, it would become a concern immediately.
Those of us that are closer to Dallas County, closer to Williamson County, supposedly we know more about what our neighbors are doing, and we should be able to factor that into our decisions as best we know how.
Well, I think the question is, do you want to just figure out what they're doing and let them run with it, or do you want to try to have some input into the future availability and management of the resource? And to us, trying to get Williamson County to come to the table and be more reasonable on what's going on over there and have some way to address management of groundwater resources is the end result that should come. But right now, there's no reason for them to come to the table if the water continues to be available just because we know what they're gonna do.
Well, you're closer there. Do you have some reason to believe that, doing this is gonna really influence them to come to the table? It seems like the climate we live in right now doesn't really lend itself to that.
Oh, I wouldn't completely agree or disagree with what you said there. I think that to us, it's just one step in a process that we're willing to embark upon, one step in the journey, to try and call attention to what's going on over there and alert people that there are concerns and dangers. If you're gonna depend on this long term, and they need to start looking at other alternatives sooner than later. That's why I asked about publishing, that slide that Neil said was missing about, on the Williamson County stuff, drawdown by wells. I think that, when their engineers look at what's predicted in certain wells and realize that the capacity is gonna reduce, I think that's gonna be another step in this process. I mean, I like the suggestion that was made just a moment ago from Whitney. I would take maybe 60% of what we predict for 2030 and let that be the 2030 number. Run the model, and then that buys us 5 more years before we jump everything up to 60,000 acre feet out of those 2 formations.
That is one option. The other option is kind of going along the lines of what Brian was describing and what Doug was describing, where you just set the desired future condition. And so if we're looking at this available drawdown and we say we want, 70%,
Yep,
50%.
I like that. I like that even better.
That's kind of the intent of the whole process. So.
Well, that's based on science too, instead of just picking a number. And that's better.
Yeah, so I think we don't have the numbers in front of us, but we think in run 4.6, the available drawdown was sub 50%.
So I've got the number in front of me. This is for the average, not at wells. I would caution using wells in Williamson County because we just don't know where the wells are.
I agree with that.
So let me just look at the average. I'll give it to you here. So in Gary, it's not the sum of those two, right? Keep in mind the Austin is part of the Travis Peak, so the Travis Peak and the Austin are the same. So we're talking about the maximum is going to be 38,000 in Williamson County. The available drawdown in the subcrop for the Austin is 45%, and the Travis Peak overall is 53% in Williamson County and 2080 for around 4.6. So it's hovering right around 50%, 45 to 53.
Is it possible for Terrant to take a number like 70% and then convert it back?
I don't know if we shut all the pumping off in Williamson if it would be 70% anyway. It might not be, it might be lower. But, so I can't guarantee that, but we did a sensitivity where we cut it by 50%. Everybody has that in their hands. I just don't happen to remember what the available drawdown was under those conditions.
Yeah, how about for 4.2, so that's the baseline. What was the production there in Williamson County? As a drawdown.
Give me 1 second, I should be able to pull it up. Let's see my screen. Alright, so you're saying run 4.2 and you're saying mag for Williamson County, right?
Yes.
So sum of all the aquifers, like 2,100 acre feet per year. Which is similar to what run 4.1 was.
What was the mag there?
For this, the lower run, yeah, it was something around 2,100 acre feet per year in Williamson County.
What was the available drawdown?
Did we do available drawdown for that round? Let me look.
I'm not sure we did we?
Let me look. Got it all on one sheet here. But you gotta keep in mind too that Bell County, Travis County, everybody was way lower pumping, so. And available drawdown in Williamson, Travis Peak was 95% available at the end. I don't have that 50% sensitivity run on this computer. I wish I had it, because that would give us a good indicator. But we can certainly look at it when we get back to our desk. So I've heard slower ramp up, or I've heard set a target in 2080 of what? I mean, if we're at 50% now, what's the preferred remaining available drawdown in Williamson County? There's certainly other counties in this region that have 50% available drawdown in 2080 or less.
I'm not sure we're gonna be able to find numbers and amounts that are gonna satisfy everyone at this particular meeting. I apologize for being the fly in the ointment, but not being on any of the, not being available to be on any of the committee meetings because of quorums. It's really kind of been hard to communicate through things, but would it be acceptable for a committee to be appointed to do a 4.7? And again, this is one of those instances where we would consider it our responsibility to pay quite a bit of that run and that expense. And maybe have us and Clearwater, Prairie Lands, maybe even Central Texas, all those that are really in proximity and closer to Williamson and Travis, to come up, sit down with them, Tarrant, and come up with that number and then kind of work through it. I kind of think I know where we're headed. Some number that's based on science, maybe a 75% or an 80% available at the end of the planning period. Something that's going to make more water available longer. I think a small committee sitting down with Terra could bring back a model run to the GMA that would be acceptable.
I would support that if that's agreeable.
Well, I'd sure like to hear what everybody thinks.
I guess I wanna hear from Neil on timing.
Neil can do it by the end of the week.
So,
Next week.
I mean, it takes us a couple of weeks to turn a run around, no matter how simple it is. So, I do think the slow part is getting together and choosing what goes into the model rather than the model being the slow part.
so we already have a technical committee. Are you suggesting a different technical committee?
Well, I'm the one causing the problem, so I probably ought to serve on this one, and I don't wanna unseat someone else who's already done, good work, but at the same time, I haven't been able to participate for obvious reasons, and I think that, that would be the only way forward. And since we're only really looking at one area of concern, which is the Williamson and Travis County areas, I was thinking that, the districts that adjoin those areas might be
Well, if you're gonna do the committee, I would do the Southern Committee, and then since Saratoga's out, and move me out, and then add Kathy and Gary. If you're gonna do it that way, that'd be fine. I don't wanna do that, just a thought.
No, that's a vital thought, thank you
Because
for,
the fault zone kind of blocks a lot of influence from Williamson, so it impacts Kathy a little bit more because it runs up that I-35 corridor, you know, and has some greater impact on you. So,
thank you, Patrick.
but it's up to,
So that's a committee of Clearwater, Central Texas, Prairie Lands, Post Oak, Savannah, Southern Trinity.
it's up to you.
Maybe, some of you could help me to understand, but as a representative of Red River, far flung from this issue, or closer to the Dallas issue, why should my district spend money to work on this? I mean, this is GMA 8, this is a broad brush.
We're not asking for, we're offering to pay.
Okay, I didn't even, I thought we were gonna pay part of it, not all of it.
No, we offer, if it's just Gary and I, we'll pay it. If someone else would like to, we'll take the money. Our insurer will take the money.
And I would argue also that it does affect the entire GMA. We're talking about 1,300 feet of drawdown, so that stretches very far north too. But I think they've already sorted out the payment portion.
Yeah, but we also realized that the commitment was made early on that if individual districts requested, individual runs, that would be their responsibility, and we would assume the lion's share, or depending on who else wants input and how they want to play it, but we would assume that we would have a large responsibility in paying for this run.
And so a part of this committee, we can revisit the run that Central Texas paid for, that did 50% reduction in Williamson and Clearwater. And we can start there maybe and use that as a basis for this second run that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty close analog, yeah.
Would it be easiest if Terra ran the model tree in Williamson County with similar pumpers that we see in Bell and McLennan and Hill County?
Don't remember off the top of my head how much those are.
I was just thinking of an easy way.
Oh, let's see, the mag, I think I put Williamson next to Bell, didn't I? Go with one, yeah. So Bell's total is about 25,000, Williamson's about 38,000, 38 and change. I mean, we can discuss that at committee level if you want, it's worth taking note on that.
So if we form this committee, are we going to wait to see those results before we do the final contracted run?
I mean, that's your whole decision. I mean, I totally think it would make sense to, for sure. I mean,
I'm asking the group.
It's not gonna really affect our final run, is it?
It could, it will affect theirs down there, especially the districts around it, it would really affect their run.
The rest of you guys, it won't make much difference.
Yeah, for North Texas and Red River, it's not gonna, the percent change is so small. That's kind of non-usable.
So essentially, if we form this committee, we need to meet next week. Get a run in 3 weeks. Look at those results, then do a final run.
Yeah.
And I like your idea of starting with your run and that one other run, and I mean, I think that gives us a general idea where we want to get to it and some things to compare to it. Hopefully it wouldn't take a long discussion with Terra's help to put us where we need to be.
So our plan was to, two major things in the March meeting were draft explanatory report, you guys approve that, and then draft final run, you approve it. So if we're doing a run 4-7 and then we're gonna do a final run, do we need to have a meeting of this full planning group to look at the results of 4-7 before we actually distinguish? So it sounds like we need a February meeting before the March meeting.
So March was anticipated at the next meeting. meeting now, we're thinking we may need to have one at the end of February.
I'm asking, if everybody can get on board with this 4/7 as the final run without having a full meeting, that's fine, but I don't recommend it.
I agree. I think we need to have another meeting. I mean, I don't mind having another meeting. It's part of our job, right?
So we can put that on just, what we need to do, but I agree with Mitchell, let's meet next week and start talking about it.
So with that, we're gonna need a motion to form that committee and proceed with the second round.
I'll motion.
A motion by Paul and a second by Doug to form the Southern Technical Committee. Any further discussion?
You wanna name out who they are, or does that matter?
Southern Trinity.
Guy over here.
What's that?
I said, stay on for the minutes guy over here.
It'd be Southern Trinity, Clearwater, Central Texas, Prairie Lands, Post Oak, Savannah. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. And so you're saying we don't,
Thank y'all very much.
you're saying we don't need any further action for the final round? We're gonna have a GMA meeting in February?
Right now on the fly, that's my recommendation, yeah. I think that we need to talk about the results of that before we get to the final where everybody really has to issue cut it. Yeah. Okay.
So is that a date we could decide today, or do we need to send a phone?
I'm ready to do it today, but,
If everybody's got the
and
calendar?
if this is your room, so we need to make sure it's available.
Yeah. Okay. How many thoughts?
It can't be early February, we won't be done, so we're in the last week of January right now. I mean, optimistically, we could do the last week of February. I'm in GMA 1 Monday, Tuesday, so I can do the 25th through 27th if we can schedule in that, or we could do an early March and have our second meeting. Paul, had we scheduled the March meeting yet, or no?
No, we
Okay.
haven't.
So we can do like a real late February or early March and then a late March one if we want to do that way.
Those dates in February work.
It worked for me.
26th or 27th.
25th, 26th, 27th is what I have available, I believe.
So sound like the 26th, 27th for you, Gary?
Yeah, either of those are fine.
So let's say 26, is that good?
Yeah, it's better than
Thursday.
Friday.
Yep.
10 a.m. this room.
There's half of the work right there, getting everybody to respond to the doodle poll.
It's done.
Any further discussion on these additional model runs right now?
And I'll send out a Google poll for the March one, get that planned too, this week or early next week.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's good going and get it on our calendars.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Moving to item 10, discussion and possible action on how to state the desired future condition for this round of planning.
All right, so to kind of facilitate this, I wanted to just remind everybody how they were stated. I wasn't around when it was done, but I pulled them out of the explanatory report. Give me a second to click here on how they were stated last round of planning. And let's look. Hopefully it's in your packet there. All right, so one note that I just wanted to highlight real quick, there was a little bit of discretion that was given, that they be consistent with the average drawdowns calculated by the water board within 5% or 5 feet, whichever is larger, both DFC drawdown values. That gives us a little bit of squish between calculations that we make and then the calculations that get reproduced by the water board. That's helpful for the consultants and the water these tables are in the explanatory report. So basically, the DFCs are stated most broadly to start with, and then they get stated more finally resolved. So we start with GMA-wide statements of average drawdown for those aquifers, that's table 1. And then you see on a DFC scale by aquifer for table 2. And then Upper Trinity split between outcrop and down dip, so they've got their table 3. And then table 4 we've got by county and aquifer, which is how you mostly have been looking at them for these runs 4.1 through 4.6. So we're contemplating A is average drawdown, the metric you want to stay with at the aggregate scale, at the GMA scale. Do you want to use something else at the GMA scale? And then when you break down at the district level, we can pretty much produce them in the explanatory report. We can do any of the metrics we've done so far. Available drawdown by average drawdown, we can do available drawdown by wells. It's more of a question of when we're going at the regional GMA level, or maybe even at the full district level, if you guys still want to do average drawdown and state it that way.
Average for the district or for the county?
So we do an entire GMA, that's that first table. So all the counties, all the non-district counties in the GMA, everything gets averaged together per aquifer. That's the first table. The second one is by district. So we would average, like your entire Red River district would have one number. And then we would break it further down by county and aquifer in that table 4 there that's on the right. And that's where you decide what you manage to. But obviously, we're not going to manage to a GMA-wide DFC. You guys won't do that, but the statement, I think, is still useful.
So as long as we got the county and the district, the aquifer, what benefit do we get from the first two tables? I don't know that we really have any use for those.
Well, let's discuss.
That's a good point.
If we don't have any use for them, it's going to complicate the situation and get rid of them.
There is some, James, I'm not calling on you specifically here, but I think there's some language in chapter 30 that might motivate having a GMA-wide DFC. And maybe, is Brian still in here? What do you think about that, Brian? Is there anything that would motivate us having to have a GMA-wide DFC?
Oh, I think when you see certain legislators promoting aquifer-wide authorities to replace all the folks sitting around here because you can't manage aquifer-wide, it's nice to be able to point out that you can adopt these cell averages at any scale you want. But maybe you put something in there, again, that it's the intent of the districts to manage to the districts, even though we can adopt them on multiple scales. That's the reason that started happening.
Okay.
And one comment I'll make really quick, at least on behalf of my clients, is that any changes to what we did last time, I certainly would like the opportunity to review it with our consultant. And so if we're gonna change it all the way we did it last time, like I said, we'd like time to look at what that would be.
Yeah, I don't think we were gonna take action on this today. I just wanted the discussion to start happening.
We would do this in the February meeting, maybe?
Yeah, probably March, actually, I'm thinking. I think February is really gonna focus on getting that run 4.7 buttoned up and everybody agreeing on a run, hopefully a run 4.7.
You know, and I'm just gonna say this was on record. You know, I think we want to see the DFC stated, at least for us, at probably the district and the county level, percent available drawdown remaining by well, and that's not considering the formations, right? And the reason I say that is just because of, you know, y'all heard me talk about how it is and how the aquifer exists in our district, and it's very muddy, and it's are there these clear Paluxy wells? No, they're Paluxy Glenrose wells. Are there these real Twin Mountains wells? No, they've got some Glenrose and a little bit of the upper part of the Hensel, or their so it's just because there aren't these large regional aquifers really anywhere in our district except a few places. And so just focusing on what's in the well just makes more sense, and it's actually measuring what we're adopting, right? So that's what we'd like to see, but you know, that just affects us.
I have the same situation going on.
Right.
Lucky Road or essentially the same.
Right.
And then, especially outcrop, Hensel and Austin, there's no Hensel and Austin.
Right. Right.
It's all
And that's why we really like the by well percent available drawdown, because it doesn't matter what aquifer it's in, right?
Mitchell, I hate to ask this again, but I've asked Wade on this, and he's kind of provided me some comments. Do you mind if he shares that?
Sure. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody. So we talked about metrics a lot in the committee. I just want to add some comments there. The average drawdown across the entire aquifer, that's been the standard that you all have used before. Positive of that is, it's measurable and, it's fairly intuitive what's happening. The downside of it is that you end up with drawdowns in some areas that you don't have monitoring capability. So there's pros and cons of that. We looked at available drawdown in model cells. Positive is that you can compare outcrops and subcrops, and there's some relevance there. The downside is that you have this like hard break between outcrop areas and subcrop areas where you're using the full water column versus just the water column above the aquifer top. Okay, so that's sort of an incongruous thing. Doug mentioned available drawdown in wells. I'm going to start with the downside on that. The downside is that the wells that we're using for that are just pumping wells in the model as opposed to all, so it's a little bit of a skew. I think from my perspective there are positive sides for a couple of the districts that I've worked with, in that you don't have to demonstrate that they're in a particular aquifer, going to the discussion that was here earlier, and it does give you the opportunity to aggregate and look at it across the Trinity as a whole, as opposed to setting desired future conditions for, say, the Hensel, if the Hensel's not really used in your district and you don't have a real way of monitoring that individually. To the extent that this, there can be value in consistency with what has been done in the past, and I don't want to minimize that, but there can also be value in simplicity. And so aggregating can reduce the number of DFCs that you all have the responsibility to manage for, from whatever it is right now. It's like 180 DFCs down to something that might be a little more manageable for you in your daily jobs, and more easy to or easier to communicate to the boards and to the public. I don't know if Kathy, if there's anything else.
No, wish I could have said it that easy.
Thanks. Thank you. Great.
Neil, I'll provide a little bit more history.
Sounds good.
I remember at least. Yeah, James Beach with AGS, and there were stakeholders in round one and round two from the audience. Most of y'all probably remember saying, hey, we've got to manage by reservoir, not just chop this thing up by counting an aquifer. And so in the interest of not knowing what was going to be coming down the pike in the future as far as complaints or petitions or whatever, this system was developed. It's certainly not the be-all and end-all, and I think if you look at SOA cases around the state, you'll see that SOA doesn't really understand a lot of what is going on with DFCs and what we're trying to accomplish either. And so I think the verdict's out as to the best way of doing this, and I think I'm preaching to the choir on that. But I wanted to make sure to give you all the history on that and why this was developed, and it was just trying to cover bases, in all the statements, all the ways you can, as Brian said, average red black results, and that's basically the history of it. So, thanks.
Is that still your recommendation today?
I don't have a recommendation. I think it's a policy decision for y'all. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Well, we need to be thinking about this because we need to answer soon.
I think maybe by default, we'll produce those first two tables and y'all can either say yes or no at the end.
Okay. Okay, then we will move on to, unless do you want to take a break right now, or you want to keep going? Just keep going then. Item 11, presentations and discussion related to desired future conditions
pursuant to Texas Water Code 36.108D for 8, the feasibility of achieving the desired future conditions.
Yep, so we're looking at factors 8 and 9, and basically these are one slide deals, and I stole this slide directly from James. Thank you, James. So number 8, feasibility of achieving DFCs. The question you're asking is physical achievability. Can you physically achieve this DFC possible with the aquifer? The way that we answer that is we say we have a model that represents the best available science for the aquifer. We're putting a reasonable amount of pumping in there. We're getting a reasonable amount of drawdown. I'm using the word reasonable. We're getting a physical amount of drawdown, and therefore it's generally physically achievable based on the best physics we can do with the aquifer. So then in terms of regulatory achievability, it's y'all's management plans coming together with the DFCs and your rules to make sure that you can regulatorily achieve these DFCs. So I think that we pass both those bars. We clear those hurdles pretty easily. So I don't have any really questions about whether these are feasible for us. But I would love to entertain any questions y'all have.
Any questions on this item? Thank you, Neil. Moving to item 12, discussion and possible action on the explanation and the explanatory report for how each district is monitoring, tracking, and performing and achieving the desired future conditions.
And I'll apologize, we've lumped 2 factors into that one item, so I need to go over factor 9.
We'll move back to item 11.
This is other relevant information. So basically, in the previous cycle, we had no additional information presented above identified for inclusion in this explanatory report. My recommendation is we stay with that unless you all have any other relevant information that you thought should be included. We're not voting on anything right here, just let me know and we'll get it into the explanatory report if that's the case.
Will do.
Okay.
So now moving to item 12.
All right, so this is where we have these 2 new, and appreciate Brian still here, or did he
stepped down?
Stepped out. Well, Brian had a little meeting with us and talked about these 2 new requirements since he was kind of front and center when these things were being developed. So we had a requirement, an explanation in the explanatory report for how each district is monitoring, tracking, and performing and achieving the desired future conditions. And so that has to be in the explanatory report. We sent an email out in the technical committee space saying, hey, we're gonna need y'all's feedback. So I wanted to start getting some feedback today on how you districts might put a paragraph in the explanatory report, kind of help us get that box checked for each and every one of you. I don't know who wants to go first, if anybody wants to go first.
Well, let me just clarify, you're asking us to kind of narratively tell you how we're gonna do that, and then for the ER, we are gonna then provide you with a written paragraph that states this?
Yes. Yeah, we can't, I mean, we don't want to write it for you because we're gonna get it wrong anyway, so.
Okay, so each
GMA 8 or individual districts?
individual districts are required to do this.
So we'll have a section header that says North Texas GCD, and it'll have a paragraph, and we'll have a section header that says Central Texas, we'll have a paragraph, or 2, whatever you guys want to provide.
So when do you need this by, Neil?
Well, we're trying to get the draft explanatory report in the March meeting, so, sometime before then, I'm not gonna have a ton of editorial comments on what y'all write, it's mostly we're just gonna put it in there, so. In February would be awesome. I know it's the first time y'all are doing this, first time I'm considering it as well, so we're all gonna work together on it. Robert, you got any wisdom for us on that one? You can step up to this microphone if you want.
Yeah, I'll step up. Just a few things on. You do have to consider this at the GMA level, but it's a continuum. It's also in your management plans, and I would suggest highly, if you have an annual report, putting it in there so that you have it when you need it. So if you need to update your management plan, you've already done it. And then since you've done like an annual reports or management plans, you'll have it ready for this process in the next round. So I see it as a continuum. You just constantly have this available. So, okay.
points? I guess I can start. We're just gonna be looking at our network of monitor wells and the data, the historic data that we have, and putting those on trend lines with the DFCs and seeing how they relate to the.
I mean, I'll jump in. That's exactly what we've been doing. And currently, we have a requirement in our management plan to adopt a monitoring program to track DFCs, and that's part of that requirement that we put the results of that trend analysis in our annual report every year. So it's something that we've been doing. So I'm just going to lift that out. But basically, that report that we create for our annual report each year it looks at water levels in all our monitoring wells, which there's like 275, almost 300 of them now. We look at one year trend changes, 5 year, 10 year, and then 2010, and then we also compare that to the DFC and identify, where we are on that path. We put a lot of thought into it. Wade helped us come up with it when he was back with Terra. If anybody wants to see that report that we create, I'm happy to share it so y'all can look at it.
Is there online?
It's in our annual report, but it's so you don't have to dig. I'd be happy just to email it to you guys if y'all want it.
And just to note, I mean, all that work that Doug and Mitchell and others are doing, the science behind that does not need to appear in this explanatory report. You just need to describe.
To summarize.
If you can point to a reference, that's fine.
So summarize what we do and summarize the results.
Right.
Right.
We already have ours in our management plan. We already have a paragraph in our management plan.
That's excellent. Cut and paste.
We do too, and so that's what we plan to do.
Anybody doing anything different? Okay, so we got homework, providing Terra a narrative to address this item.
Neil, do you want us just to send you a Word document of what should ultimately be in there, or?
Yeah, even an email with a couple of paragraphs just to.
Copy paste.
Yeah, I don't need the data and the great work you've done. I just need the summary.
Just the summary. Perfect.
Well, we put a deadline on there, like March 2nd.
Yeah, late February, March 2nd.
I agree.
Maybe by when did we schedule that next meeting? It was 20, okay, that's a little early. All right, let's get close to that next meeting. Let's try to get it in.
We'll do it Monday after that.
Okay. I'm gonna write that down. I'll nag you guys later.
Okay, item 13 is discussion and possible action on the explanation and explanatory report on why a desired future condition is different from desired future conditions adopted in the previous planning period.
Yeah, same kind of thing where this is a new requirement, and so we're looking just for short summary of why that might be. I will say in the case of y'all, you guys have updated the model. The model's new. Paul, we had a discussion about how transmissivities were adjusted when we recalibrated, so you're getting different drawdowns. I mean, that's certainly a reason. So if the model changed and it changed things in your district, that's certainly a justification for changing DFCs. There are certainly other reasons when local conditions change that you might change them. But I didn't want to mention that because it's pretty obvious for GMA or the Trinity.
Excuse me, I apologize. You're looking from statements from individual districts for this as well?
That's correct.
Because it seems like it's likely to be repetitive.
Yeah, and I guess just to point out that both the previous item and this one, it's for all the DFCs. So if there are other aquifers outside of the Trinity, that's what we're mostly talking about. But if there are other aquifers, I have some, you have to do the same thing for those as well.
Good point, Mitchell.
So same deadline for that?
Yeah, let's aim for it, please.
So I think this is pretty straightforward, how we can explain why a DFC changed. We have additional documentation to bring forward. Anybody have any other comments on that? and Doug just stepped out. So this is consider and act upon a resolution declaring the cross timbers formation within ERAF and Comanche counties contained within GMA A to be non-relevant for joint planning purposes.
That's me.
Those are in your district.
I guess I didn't get the resolution, so it's fine.
You did, and I think with the winter storm, it didn't make it back in.
I mean,
we
we
have resolutions.
But it may
right now.
need, there were documentation, so this may need to be pushed to the February 26th.
We do have another meeting coming up.
6 meetings, so we can cover it then. But this is just, we have pretty low just domestic, or stock use, and it's very low production, sorry. But very low, just stock wells, very low production, very low even capacity. I mean, they make like 3 gallons a minute per lectin. And so we have had data centers come and look to try to do production in that, and they turn away because they realize it's really salty and there's no production. So we were trying to declare it non-relevant because we really don't see huge volume of water use coming from that portion of at least the cross timbers for us.
Yeah, and that makes sense. So like, I mean, honestly, in Wise and Parker County, which should be, you know, just closer to you guys, it's the same. It's just in Montague County for us, you make 100-something gallons a minute out of cross timber. So we're declaring it relevant for all of it, but I concur with, based on the southern part of our district, makes sense what you're seeing there.
So we don't have the resolution today, is what you're saying?
I have one. What happened is, they didn't make it into the packet. That's what happened.
Okay.
We just delayed it for, I mean, it's,
Does it need to be done today?
no.
Okay, it doesn't affect, okay.
No.
If you're okay with it.
I mean, but if people have objections to it, let them know. Because,
I do not. I don't see any issue. So we can take official action at the next meeting then?
I think so. I have a question for Robert. Does the Water Development Board gonna have any issue with that?
As long as you follow chapter 356.31C. It has the exact things you have to declare an aquifer non-relevant. And we will be looking at these because we've had some other districts want to do very relevant aquifers non-relevant, so.
Right, I'm familiar with that conversation.
So yes, we will be looking at these and hopefully just look at them in the drafts, maybe make comments during the public comment period.
And probably the resolution needs to speak to that, even cover that.
Technically, our rules just say you have to put the explanation in the explanatory report. And since you're not adopting anything, it's actually, you're making it non-relevant. That's up to y'all to have that information and that resolution.
I think it'd be cleaner to formalize it.
It is.
So the group wants to do this at the next meeting while we have the agenda, or I'm sorry, the resolution in front of us.
And you need a motion for that?
To table it or?
To table it.
I'll move to lay this on the table until we get the resolution in front of us.
Okay. Motion by Whitney,
I would second that.
second by Kathy. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving to agenda item 15. Consider and act upon a resolution declaring the Brazos River alluvium formation within GMA A to be non-relevant for joint planning purposes. I know Southern Trinity had perhaps some comments on this.
Yeah, can you put their slides up? Is that other presentation? It's not Mike's, so it's the short 3-slide one? Yeah, there you go.
You would explain this?
Yeah, you want to just go over what you guys look for?
Yeah, basically, I mean, the alluvium in our area is really compartmentalized. It hasn't, I mean, it recharges, about as much as they use out of it. For the last 60 years, it's been the same, hadn't, gone below, what normally happens.
Go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this statement at the bottom. So that's, what Stuart's saying is that we don't have a resolution for it either, so we have to table this one, but that we need to try to qualify the resolution so that.
Yeah, we'll have a resolution for you at the February meeting.
Yeah, so that, because we manage it, we permit that.
Yeah, we permit it, manage it, and it also helps, a lot of us, it also helps to take some of the strain off of the Trinity aquifer, because people are starting to blend water with Trinity now. We have a pretty large issue down in a little town called Riesel, that it's using it to actually deplete some of its arsenic issue, as well as pumping less Trinity water and blending it with the lake. So we'll have a resolution for that at the next week.
So it's a little bit subtle. You can see the statement they've written here. The BRAA, the Brazos River Alluvium Aquifer, is relevant to Southern Trinity for the purposes of district's management of the aquifer, but non-relevant for joint planning.
Right.
So what you're asking for is that it stays non-relevant for the purposes of joint
For
planning.
everybody else.
But you need this language in the resolution to conform your management plan with what the water board is looking for.
Right.
Okay. So the non-relevance that was same as previous stays, but you guys get some additional words in there to help your management plan pass the test for the board. That's my understanding.
Has the Brazos River alluvium always been non-relevant for GMA?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, well, I think it started in 2015.
Okay.
There's, you can show them, if you go to the very last slide, skip over to the next one.
Okay. I may not have that. Can we go to the third slide?
The way we did it last time in the explanatory report, we provided this language. So we're recommending that this language go into the new explanatory report and that it be in the resolution, at least a minor modification of the resolution as it exists today on your agenda. We just add this additional statement that Southern Trinity is managing that aquifer, just to make sure that it's clear. Everybody knows, we permit it, but it's not, it's totally enclosed within our county, it's nobody else. So the statement that you guys are making is that it's not relevant for planning, for regional planning purposes. That's true, for regional there's no issue, but for a local planning purpose there is. So we just wanna make that very clear that we don't compromise our permitting system. It is very subtle, right? And basically that wording that's on the first slide that's all we need.
Any questions?
I guess maybe ask Robert, is this something that needs to be included?
Right, well, my question for Robert was, and by all means, it doesn't affect me, I just wanna make sure it's gonna be okay with them, because my understanding for non-relevant aquifer is truly non-relevant, right? It produces very little, nobody's drilling wells into it, or if they are, it's a situation where I make one or two
But
gallons a
that's
minute.
not what the statement
But-
you're making is. It says non-relevant for regional planning.
Right, well, I'm sorry, I was trying to ask Robert a question, and again, I'm just trying to make sure it's gonna cut mustard with them. So when you have an aquifer that is relevant for an area where it's productive, it's prolific, but it only exists inside the bounds of one district, is that going to meet y'all's
It
definition?
will if all our requirements are met.
Okay.
But I'm kind of confused why you're worried about your management plan. It's not relevant.
Right.
You need to put any information in there except what you want. There's no MAG number to put in, which is a requirement, and there's no DFC to put in. So
We
which
have
you can describe all you do in the Brazos River Loop in your management plan, but it's not a required item because it's non-relevant.
Right, but we
permit to the MAG, which is the recharge.
Well, there's no MAG if there's no DFC, and it's non-relevant, so there's no MAG.
Yeah, well, there was a report written when we developed all this when it was relevant.
Okay.
And the permits were issued, and so we're maintaining those same numbers that came from that.
Right.
Water Development Board report, so it may be a new situation. There was definitely some conflict on this with Water Development Board.
I remember now.
Yeah, and so this language was that it wasn't in your resolution of what we were doing. It was brought up, and so this was to clarify that you guys are aware that we're doing.
I've slipped since then, but they had put in this MAG for the Brazos River alluvium for a non-relevant aquifer. We said you can't do that. You can put in groundwater availability, you can call it anything else but MAG.
Yeah, I would suggest just not
That's
using.
all you have to do.
The term DFC. Well, I appreciate the clarification because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we did provide a changed language.
Yeah, that was the issue, is they called it a MAG when it wasn't a MAG.
Right. Right. Like I said, again, I have no concern or issue with anything you are trying to do. I want to make sure it's not going to get hung up.
It's an outdated MAG.
Straighten it out now.
Yeah, so it's semantics we're going to, nomenclature. It came from an outdated MAG that was a water development report.
Right.
At one time was a MAG.
Right. And it was a very bad MAG because it was a water budget MAG.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-model, so. But that's the issue.
Well,
is
we actually adopted it from the post-model, anyways, okay.
It's kind of like there's a copyright on the name MAG.
Right.
So if it's not a MAG, you have to use the groundwater availability, whatever it is. All right.
So we have a couple offers that we're deeming non-relevant. I think there are others as well.
Yes, so we have the Nakatosh, and we have the Blossom, and then a portion of the cross
A
timber.
portion of the cross timbers and then the Brazos River alluvium.
Portion
So
of
can we
the-
put all four of those on one resolution and one agenda item for the next meeting?
I don't know the answer to that.
Let's do that.
Okay.
The answer
You're shaking your head yes, right? Okay.
Okay.
Hey, just to be sure, I think we addressed the Brazos River alluvium and Post Oak Savannah previously, but if we need to readdress it in this resolution, let me know if there's anything else you need from us. Our board already adopted a resolution. I think we brought that to you guys almost a year ago. But just let me know if we need anything else from Post Oak, okay?
So are we talking about doing a GMA8 resolution? Okay, so what we'll do is do a GMA8 resolution, then attach those to their GCDs resolutions they provide as part of that.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, that sounds like a great,
No,
we've
I
got
don't
that
know.
resolution, seems like that would work perfectly.
Okay, well, I think we have clear direction there. Any other discussion? All right. Moving to item 16, discussion and possible action on the northern segment of the Edwards Oconee fault zone aquifer groundwater availability model for joint planning.
Mike's got a few slides for you guys.
Yeah, this should go by pretty quick. Basically, since 2021, we're under joint planning. There's a new model for the Edwards aquifer, for that northern segment there, and it's really only applicable for Travis, Williamson, and Bell County. As we've discussed already, Bell County is the only one with the GCDs, so really it's been up to Clearwater to kind of look at that model, look at what that means for adopting DFCs, and did you connect me to it?
Sorry.
No worries. So, to give a little bit of background there, the adopted DFCs for Clearwater and then also Travis County, Williamson County, were based on the GAMRA in 08, basically GAMRA done in 2008. That used version 1 of that groundwater availability model for the Edwards. And during the cycle since then, it's just been, let's just reuse that same model run. So really no additional work was necessary. The model run did a good job of representing what those DFCs, what those adopted DFCs look like. No change in the DFCs or anything for Bell County. And those are based on drought of record conditions and what flow looked like, specifically for Clearwater within Salado Creek. So it had to be 100 acre-feet per month from the model was what we were looking at there. So with the change in the DFCs there,
Sorry.
no worries. With the new model, we started looking at what those results looked like. And the new model added in a couple of layers. One was a very low permeability layer called walnut. And then below that, the representation of the Trinity. Now, the model author did say that those really were just to facilitate how groundwater is moving from the Trinity into the Edwards, so how it can be moving upward into the Edwards. And those layers weren't really intended for looking at groundwater flow, adopting DFCs or anything like that. So we were still using the Northern Trinity dam for that purpose. One of the other big changes that was made was in the original model they used what are called drain cells to simulate flow in Salado Creek and the other streams in Travis and Williamson counties. What a drain cell does is it allows water to come out of the model, doesn't allow water to go back in through that drain. They switched those over and are using river cells. That allows, and those are a boundary condition in the model that allows water to move in and out depending upon what the simulated flow in that river is. But one thing about them is they are simulated to always have some kind of water, some head layer in that river. So this is just to give kind of a quick example of what that looks like when your aquifer levels are high. You're looking over there at the left, that's that big blue bar. Your river cell and your drain cell, they're going to act pretty much the same. Water's going to be coming out of that model cell and moving into out of that drain or out of that riverbed. However, when water levels in the aquifer decline or in that cell, then all of a sudden your river model cell is pushing water back in. Well, this created a bit of a problem for Clearwater when we were looking at the model. And when we first looked at the first version of the model, we got with Water Home Board, reached out, we talked with Natalie and Darren over there, and they started working on it to look at what's a way that we can get the model to be a better representation of what Clearwater needs for doing DFCs. So here's what we ended up with. This is a chart that just illustrates what the flow was coming out of, or what they reported as the flow coming out for the Salado Creek there within Bell County. You can see down there on the bottom where we have, it's this light dashed purple line. It says, that's our adopted DFC within Fairwater, 100 acre feet per month. You'll notice that the red line, the jiggly line there that you see, it never gets down to that level. The model does a good job of meeting what the median stream flow. And so that's really what the target was within the model for version 2 there, is to meet the median stream flow. However, recall that the DFC that's adopted is based on drought of record, so really these low flow conditions. And it wasn't able to get down there and hit those numbers for us. This is how it's represented in the model. So it's this big purple area, that's kind of an area that was used to zone out Salado Creek. We see the blue line there, that's actually Salado Creek within Bell County, and what we're looking at when we look at the model. So when we look at just the stream cells themselves, which is how we looked at it in version 1 of the model, where it was just those drain cells, we see that solid purple line down there at the bottom. The green line that we're seeing there, that's actually version 1 of the model. So you can see lots of big flow changes in between depending on climate conditions. The light blue line, that's actually what Clearwater's been working with the USGS to actually monitor real world flow in the stream. So they've got a gauging station in there now. That didn't start until about 2013 when we started getting some real data there. And you can see where the adopted DFC is and how it actually gets down pretty close to some of those lower flows there in, say, 2023, 2024. And the green line there, that's the predicted part of the model there, looking at those times. And so we can see where that 100 acre feet, that's really what was our number for the DFC, but we don't quite see the same thing there. If you'll notice on that purple line, it gets pretty close to it. It's still a little bit above it. One caveat is that that's what we call outflow only from the model. So when we actually look at net flow, which would be inflow, how much water is coming in from the rivers, and outflow, that number actually, that purple line jumps up a little bit. So it's showing more flow in the streams. When we look at the whole zone, we get a better match to, we get to see more of those oscillations for relative to our measured. What's going to happen in there at the creek, we see some of those bigger fluctuations. So that was where they got the calibration and got that median stream flow. Did a good job on that. But once again, we're trying to look for that low flow condition. And so just wanted to be able to give you guys a little bit of background there on what we've seen in version 2 of the model in order to get to some of these conclusions. Got a whole lot of backup slides if you want to get into some more gory details, but figure to save you guys from that part. But what we found is that version 2.1, it didn't give us that good representation of the conceptual model, where we see a lot of Salado Creek being more of a gaining stream, where it's getting flow out of the aquifer and into the stream. And it introduced some complexity in there with those river cells that version 1 didn't have in it, and that complexity just didn't feel it was necessary in this model. But we understand why it was done, why they were looking for it that way. So what we've kind of come to is that we didn't really feel like version 2.1, at least as it is right now, was going to be the best tool for us to use for joint planning. It wasn't going to be that best available science. We didn't see those big fluctuations based on climatic conditions that we do see in version 1 of the model. And so when we had talked to Darren and Natalie about it, they said, we kind of had a couple of options here. One, the first option was to keep trying to rework the model, and that's what they went back and did. They tried to get a better match for us. The other option was to work within the GMA as a whole to go, can we let's just keep using the previous run. Keep doing that same report, go back to that GAM run at 08010 MAG for joint planning in this round, and then maybe we get those, get version 2 updated or get it working better for us for the next round. So this became kind of, when we talked to the board about it a few weeks ago, the Clearwater board, the direction was to make this request to GMA 8, that we, you guys are okay with Clearwater just continuing to use that previous MAG run. That would mean that no additional simulations, no additional work really on the Edwards itself, and that we could go ahead and make sure this is all documented within the explanatory report. So, and since Robert's here, you may have other thoughts that we didn't necessarily get from Natalie and Darren, but if so. I think, talked to Neil about it earlier, and I think we'd just be able to basically copy and paste the 9 factors discussion from the previous ER into the new one.
So if the GMA desires to use the original version or the version 1, is that going to be something the Water Development Board honors when they run the DFCs and the MAGs?
Yeah, that was the conversation we had on the front end with Natalie and Darren about it. Natalie was like, yeah, one of the options is if you can't get it to where it's really representing the DFCs, that the option would be to say, okay, we can keep using that version 1 as being the best available science.
So we need a motion today to proceed with version 1?
I think so, but that would be, I think that's what Clearwater is looking for, yes.
Yeah, to formalize it, then we move to continue using this version 1 as Mike presented.
Okay, we got a motion by Whitney, second by Doug. Any further discussion on side? All those in favor signal by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries. James?
I just wanted to clarify, what's the TWDB status on that model? Has it been accepted and stamped and everything?
So version 2.01, yes, that one has been adopted as the GAM. Version 2.1, last I checked, it was still listed as in draft.
So they have a new model that's been approved. They're allowing you to go back to a prior version to use for this run, which makes sense to me. And they're currently updating internally again the model.
Yes, they were working on, so they provided 2.1 for us to look at as the draft. We got that a couple of months ago, and then just because of the timing, we haven't been able to give any kind of formal comments back to them on 2.1.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It looks like, looking at our packet here, we had, I think in our initial draft for the agenda, we had some additional items for the Lano uplift and the cross timbers. For some reason, that did not make it on our agenda. So we will have to put those on the next agenda and move to item 17, which is updates from Texas Water Development Board.
Hello again. Just want to give you all some updates since the last time y'all met. Unfortunately, Jean Perez got delayed with his flights back from Panama, so because of the weather, so he's down for his annual trip to his family down there. Last week, all regional water plans were adopted by our board, so those are done. So it's onward and upward to the state water plan. We have some requests for applications out right now. The Ag Conservation Grant Program has it posted on our website. And also, you're probably really wanting to know about this, the Groundwater Conservation District Grant Program is launched, and that request for application is on our website under stakeholder opportunities. And we're holding an informational webinar tomorrow at 10:30. And if you didn't get the link, let me know. We'll send that out to you. We are updating our Chapter 356 rules to reflect the recent legislative updates. They should go to our board in March, so keep an eye out for those. We have been proactive in updating those requirements in our checklist. So our new management plan checklist has those items. Whitney was one of our first ones that had to go through that process and adding the DFCs and all the new requirements. I think we're going to, as an administrative issue, when you have to show the adopted DFCs in your management plan, we're going to require another appendix showing the GMA resolutions that are applicable to your district. And because after you adopt the DFCs and we say they are administratively complete, you're, as individual districts, have to adopt the DFCs at a meeting of your board to say we accept these. So we're thinking about having both of those resolutions as meeting that requirement. If you have any comments about that, you can let me know. But we're going to do that more administratively than through our rules. One thing I do want to point out is we have been revamping our groundwater availability reviews of our loan reviews. We are looking at the MAGs now throughout the state, not just in districts, but out of districts. And we have some formulas we came up with to see, how much MAG is remaining in an area, and whether we as the board need to look at that, for financing or, talk to the applicant on how to address those issues. So we are starting to put that in part of our financing. That's part of our risk management for our financing.
And that's in areas where there's not a groundwater district?
It's anywhere.
So how are y'all measuring that? If there's
We
not,
get as much, well, we do our, our water.
for the water use study?
Yeah, survey and all that. The best information we have, we try to do that, yeah. And so we will review it and write it up, and there'll be this, internal discussions. We'll have like a percentage of mag remaining. So we are looking at that. Now we gotta get our surface water reviewers to kind of do the same things. With that, you have any questions? Otherwise, I'll sit in.
There's a question.
Robert, quick question. You heard the conversation earlier about Williamson County, Dallas County. How will the board, when they're going about financing, balance that issue of knowing that maybe the mag is less than what's actually being pumped versus, you know, the financing questions and the risk on that side? It seems like those are another set of.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
We're just now getting to where we're looking at it, so we'll know when we get there.
Thank you.
I appreciate James asking that, because I've been curious.
Yeah. But since there's increased scrutiny in not only districts, but also non-district areas, we actually started this prior to all the recent events, to look at this in our groundwater availability report, so.
Any other questions for Robert? Thank you, Robert.
Let me ask one question. As far as saltwater, the bottom part of the aquifer, and any work going on to better define that, or?
We have a whole department that works on brackish groundwater. And there's several studies out there now that are done, and they're completing some other studies throughout the state.
As far as the Trinity and Woodbine aquifers, any particular?
I think it's going on now.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can check our website and they'll have those, that information for you.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item 18 is discussion and possible agenda items and dates for the next GMA meeting. The date we established was February 26th. We'll look at I guess we'll call it run 4.7. And then we need to put on the agenda the Llano uplift and the cross timbers aquifers for presentation and discussion. Are there any other aquifers that are going to be adopting DFCs that we need to put on there? So we'll also have the non-relevant resolution.
Paul, are you gonna help on that one?
Yeah, I can, thanks.
Those are the items I had, Mitchell.
Okay. And then we'll be sending out a poll for the March meeting date here shortly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably be early next week.
Okay. Any other discussion there? Agenda item 19, any final comments? Any public comments? All right. Be open to the motion.
Thank you again for letting us participate. Hope to see you guys in February.
Thank you, Gary.
Hope you get better, Gary.
Hey, thank you. It's a lot better than it was. I just got a little ways to go.
All righty. Do we have a motion to adjourn? David, and second by Kathy. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and safe travels, and safe walking outside. Thank you.
On time, under budget.
It was like the only problem is that uploading the other videos.
I wrote it down.
Still has 14 minutes. Yeah. Phone call.
Why did they delete it? Because it's taken in there.
Blanket policy, 30 days. Some of the shorter streams are staying up longer, but I mean, all of my streams were not 3-minute videos. They were 2 or 3 hour 3-minute government meetings. Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to get stuff archived, and I'm getting better at it. Okay, Facebook. That's it. They'll have another meeting. I don't know if I can make that one or not, but we'll see how it goes.